filling. Shit. Excuse my French. I started flooding a tank. Trevor, that's a tank overflowing. So here we are, and filling those tanks. Okay, why did I flood that tank? Because I like to do it. Okay. If anybody would to come from the other live stream I was doing, that cut off in the middle, that was a technical issue of my internet deciding to cut out. So the slight unfortunate thing of having the fish room super well insulated, I end up having not the strongest Wi-Fi signal into the fish room, and I can't figure out why on some days the signal in the fish room is quite strong and on other days the signal in the fish room is quite weak, and on this occasion for whatever reason it decided to cut out on me, and it took me a little bit to figure out that that's what happened, so my apologies about that. If you guys all of a sudden found me repeating what I was just saying and stuff like that. So anyway, on to the water changes. So Trevor, for your records, I overfilled the reservoir, so that was flood one, and overfilled one of the tanks, so that's flood number 2. So I'm doing well. Yeah, I actually have a couple of those Wi-Fi boosters in a couple of places in the house, but I haven't really put one in the fish room yet, because up until I started doing these videos there wasn't really that much of a need, and when I'm using my phone to do stuff, if it cuts out it switches to 5G and I barely even notice it, but obviously it just made a big difference there, Rob. So I think I should put that on my list of things to do, get a Wi-Fi booster, plug things, or I can even like maybe move one of the ones from this part of the house into the fish room actually, and see if that works better. I actually get quite jealous with people, not jealous, but I go, oh, that's a good idea when I see people's fish rooms and they actually have a nice comfy chair or a couch and a TV and stuff, because my fish room is actually not that big, even though I have 132 fish tanks in here. It's basically every single wall space is racks, so even the door is in between the racks here to be able to go out. So I don't have any real estate to be able to even put a TV anywhere unless I put it in the ceiling, and I'm not gonna watch things on the ceiling. I do watch YouTube stuff when I'm doing stuff in the fish room, but I end up leaving it on my phone and when I'm doing stuff, I just look at my screen every now and then. So yeah, I definitely don't need a TV in here. I actually probably won't have the attention span to be able to watch anything on TV and make sense of it either, because there's always a lot going on and I need to be picking eggs, moving fry, feeding fish and stuff. So so one of the things that I need to do, might as well do it when you guys are here. So this is my little container for my decapsulated brine shrimp. So this is where I feed the fish from, and this is the container that they come in. So when the container is running low and when it's just about to finish, what I actually do is I do my next feeding. So it's sort of like about that much. That's kind of like one feed worth. So I will prepare my container to start feeding. I don't need to feed the fish straight away, but I'm going to refill that. So I get my aged water in here. I think I demonstrated this before. So this water is coming from my reservoirs at the top. So it's what's filling in the tanks. So if I don't pay attention, I'm going to overfill another couple of tanks. So that's my aged water. Normally I do 4 of those spoonfuls, but that looks like that's probably not even enough. So I float that there. I'll just leave that for a little bit for it to sing and I'll mix it. But then I get the one from here to fill that. This one actually has a spoon in it as well. Before I fill it though, I should turn those taps off and then start filling the next 4 tanks. Here we are, turn 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3 of the tanks refilled already. So normally I would spoon this out, so I'm just gonna I get about that much decapsulated brine shrimp to feed for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. We'll see. And the rest get sealed. Normally what you should do, this should go in a fridge, but I kind of go through it relatively quickly so I don't bother. But if you were feeding it a lot less than me, I would suggest keeping the open big container in your fridge and separate your food in another container in your fish space so that food stays relatively fresh. My other experiment of trying to breed cories, 2 species I'm trying to breed just feeding dry foods. That experiment sort of got a bit slowed down a little bit, so I'm feeding this food. I don't know if you can see it. It's a soft pellet. I got sick for a bit and then we had visitors for a week, so that experiment I didn't end up feeding the fish as often as I do to condition the fish, so they haven't spawned yet, which is not a surprise, but hopefully that's going to happen in the next little while, because that'll be really cool to breed these 2 species I'm trying. One is Corydoras spilavini, which is now Hoplysoma spilavini, I think. I don't know where that's gone. And the other one is C121. So Corydoras or Hoplysoma C121, which is a cory that looks like Adolphoi, but obviously it's not that. and they have a plate on the gill or behind the gill. I need to have a look at the fish, and it's sort of like a brown color. So that's a very cool fish to breed if I can, because those two species I haven't bred before. So, and so this is floating. I just do that to help with it's sinking through, and what's on the surface sticks to the pipette, and I feed the surface dwelling fish. Those were the half beak fry, and then I have these epiplates, small epiplates up the top here. I put the floating ones in their tank. This, I think this tank is out of, yep, it is out of here. And then I have the pygmy panchaks, which also feed from the surface, which you can't see because they're tiny. There, so yeah. So, and those tanks are filling. My other news, I don't think anyone's, apart from Rob, well, there's 3 people. Ooh. So because I'm just randomly doing these live streams, I'm not even expecting anyone to join, but it saves me doing a video later. The other news is I am getting 10 more fish tanks. Where am I going to fit these? Good question. As you guys know, I have 132 fish tanks in here, not counting my water reservoir tanks at the top. So I figured out I have space to put some more tanks in, but the space is actually quite unique. So you can't see on this rack, for example, I have 3 same size tanks on this level and on this level, and 2 levels below that as well. I have on the far side, which you can't see, gap about that much, where I actually have one of these drawers that I showed in another video in. So on the other side of this and the 2 below, and it's the same setup in other parts of the fish room as well. I have this on the edge like that, so it's sort of taking space. So I am getting tanks made that are this wide, obviously same height as these, and they are 2 foot long, so they go 60 centimeters from front to back. So they're going to go in those gaps on the side. So I figured I can fit 10 of them in. So, so that's going to increase my tank size, tank numbers a little bit. It's always just to give me more options, because I always like having some tanks that I don't have any fish in, that I'm still running, so that when I need to move fry and things like that, I don't need to do shuffling of fish. There's always empty tanks and stuff, and they would also be quite a good size tank to set groups up of tetras and things to spawn, and also they would be a good size to raise a batch of guppies or something. So yeah, so I'm getting 10 of those tanks, which then what I'm going to do is like these tanks here, because if I put that narrow tank in the far end, I won't be able to see it very well. So what I'm going to do is these tanks are going to shuffle them that way a little bit, so that narrow tank is going to be on this end of my racks, and the same way as I put them around. So I actually have spots for 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12 of them, but I ordered only 10 to be custom made for me, so that 2 of those spots I still have those drawer things to play, to be able to have some of my bits and pieces, and I have a lot of bits and pieces. So those tanks I turned off. Let's turn these back on. So I'm just rambling. So yeah, so I'm almost done water change for one row of tanks, and that was for 15 tanks, while I'm just jabbering on about anything and everything. So yeah, so that's my live stream for today, just to let everyone know I'm still around. Just been really busy and been slightly unwell for a week, which wasn't nice, but it's winter, everyone is getting sick. So, and we have officially only a couple of weeks left of winter here, and thanks, Rob. I'll catch you in one of yours. And so yeah, so really looking forward to winter finishing, because in the city I'm in, it's actually quite possible in summertime especially to put your tropical fish outside, because it gets fairly warm for a few months. Fish get more vibrant, and you can sometimes even spawn them without doing anything extra in ponds and stuff, or just put a bunch of fry out and they just grow almost unassisted, if you're able to put that. And that's kind of what a lot of Australian rainbow and blue eye breeders up north in Australia do, because their temperatures don't go down as much as it does here in where I live. So they actually, depending on how far north they are, they can keep their fish outside pretty much all year. Of course, their disadvantage compared to me is if the fish needs to be maximum 22 degrees Celsius, they struggle to keep that temperature that low. Whereas my main thing is to try to get my temperature up in winter anyway, because this winter it wasn't that cold really, but we had -4 degrees Celsius. I don't know about Fahrenheit. I actually should have a conversion thing around here, so every time I mention a centimeter or a liter or Celsius, I quickly look at that and mention the Fahrenheit and gallons and stuff, so that what I'm saying actually makes sense. Because when I'm watching sort of fish keeping videos from other places, the gallons and stuff, I don't even bother try to convert that to liters, because they're doing what they're doing. My fish room is already set. I don't really need to know specifics of how many gallons and liters people are keeping fish in. But when I do the specific breeding videos, I will actually mention the tank they spawn in, how many liters / also gallons it is, so that if anyone wants to replicate it, they can. Currently my fish room is 26 degrees, which means these tanks here are close to 26. These would be about 24, maybe about 23, and sort of 21 to 20 on the bottom row of tanks. So yeah, so it says there's 3 people online at the moment. Thank you for being here and listening to my non-stop talking about nothing. Actually, my pygmy cories, the Corydoras pygmaeus, or are they Hoplysoma now? Anyway, pygmy cories are spawning every time I'm looking at them, so I need to put some mops in there so that I can separate some fry and raise them separately. I always end up having fry growing with the parents, but I grow a whole heap more when I hatch the eggs separately. And that's kind of the case with almost all fish. Even if the fry can grow with the parents, if you can actually separate the eggs, you always raise a lot more. It's because you're reducing competition with the parents. Even if they don't eat the eggs and the fry, they might opportunistically eat the fry and the eggs, but they also compete for the food and stuff when the fry are trying to grow. So when you can separate the eggs and hatch them separately, you know how many fry you have more or less, and you're hopefully feeding them appropriately, so you end up always raising more fry that way. So, but if you have a self-sustaining population of any fish, that's the easiest way to breed fish, really. And sometimes, like, I end up doing that indirectly. I was just mentioning before my CW10, the gold lasers. I haven't checked them off forever because they're not on my radar at the moment, and there's about 3 or 4 fry growing with the parents, and they're already about a centimeter long, so they're probably a month old or more. So that's quite handy, because if I don't breed or try to breed all the cories in my fish room, what happens is before I know it, 3 or 4 or 5 years pass, and the fish might have passed their most productive years. So always having some, excuse me, so always having some younger ones ensures that if I decide to breed, for example, the gold lasers in numbers later, I'll actually use younger fish and things like that. So, and it's kind of working. So while I'm doing that, I might figure out what sort of, so if I'm using this for my water changes, and if I'm going to use a sponge, how big a sponge do I need? If I use something that big, would that be ridiculous? Maybe. So let's experiment. So while that thing is filling, so I use usually a knife to cut this, but because I'm experimenting, I'll see. So if I was to have half the size, okay, so now I have 2 half-size ones, and if I push that through there, is that overdoing for a fish? This might be a bit too big for that. What do you think? And then all I do is I use the sharp end of this, push that through. I don't want to go to the other end, so I'll move it back that way. So, and I'll just stick this in there. So that would be my water change bit for the shoebox. And because I have a lot of hose, let's cut this too. And imagine that being, and then if I'm being very silly, if I put the tap there, and imagine that's kind of there where I'm going to put that in the shoebox, and this will be my water in and water out for the shoebox. I need to think about it a bit more, but I'll most likely figure it out and try to do one row at least on Sunday, and we'll see how that goes. Anyways, so my one row of tanks are water change done. So thank you for watching and listening to me to ramble. And this was again a not quick, but this was just a random live stream just to let people know that I'm still around and back in the fish room. And see you guys again shortly. Take care.